Hi there, welcome to FFS Livestream. It's Fringe Festival support. We're here to put some sunshine into your day that sadly is not out in the weather at the moment. It's Black Wednesday here at the Fringe. It's something that started going around. I hadn't heard that phrase before, but apparently it's the most depressing day of the Fringe because it's the quietest after the 2-for-1 days are finished and back in the middle of the week. We're not going to let that happen. We're going to keep things fluffy and all very positive. I should actually quick plug for the Gilded Balloon, who are doing Pink Wednesday today to raise money for cancer awareness, which is wonderful. We've got some guests, so we're just going to jump straight into it today. We're going to turn over here. We've got John Pendal. Hello.
Hiya.
How are you doing?
Nice to see you. Very well, thanks.
How many Fringes have you
This is
experienced?
my 5th Fringe. It's my 3rd solo show and my first year at the Gilded Balloon.
First year at the Gilded Balloon.
Yeah.
So you're on board.
I am. I'll be spraying the beard pink today.
Pink beard.
This is as pink as my clothing could get, but yeah, the beard, apparently, they've told me it's going to go pink for breast cancer.
Yeah. I'm going to steal your joke that you said earlier and just say I'm doing it with my pink eyes.
Yeah, they're deliberately coloured that way as well for today.
And we also have Richard Stemp, the Fringe Guru, which is a fantastic title.
Editor of Fringe Guru.
Editor of Fringe, not the actual Fringe Guru.
There are many, many of us.
Are you having a good festival so far?
It's been a tough one, actually. I think a lot of people are finding that, whether it was the heat or just the timings. It's been quite a difficult one to get started. But there's one day every Fringe when we flip over from chasing our tails to actually being in control. And I think that's going to happen today. Let's cross our fingers for that.
Excellent. That's the sort of positivity we like. And I'm going to come first and talk to Isla MacLean.
Hello.
It's MacLean, isn't it?
It is, yes.
It is MacLean.
Right. Yes,
Yes, I did check that beforehand. You've got the pink hair.
Yes.
You can pretend
completely
it was
unrelated
specifically.
to. I didn't even know it was Pink Wednesday, but now I feel very honoured to be part of it.
So you're a comedian.
I am.
You're up here.
Yes.
Is this your first Fringe?
This is my first solo Fringe. I was involved in the Fringe last year with my wonderful, as I call her, my comedy wife, because we started doing comedy on the same bill. Wonderful Helica Santanova. She had a character comedian called Cassandra, who is a florist by day and a poet by night, and usually hungover in the morning. And she thought it'd be a really smart idea to put me in for 10 minutes of her show that she had to fill out. And I had to stress to her, like, Helly, you know my comedy's about the fact I have a dead husband. And she was like, no, it'll be fine, it'll be fine. It was like, let's just break this down. You're doing a character who's sex obsessed, and then you're bringing in me, who's got a bloody dead husband. Really? I just, no, it'll be fine. Weirdly enough, it did work.
So your route into comedy, how did you end up doing this?
My route into comedy, basically, I used to do a lot of comedy songs on ukulele when I was at university, and then subsequently got diagnosed with depression and anxiety when I was 21, and kind of spent a few years going in and out of nursing and various things. And it was January 2016 I actually got accepted to go back into nursing. Just so happened to be the same year that my husband died, and I don't know if it's being Scottish and, like, you know, having the sense of black humour, but it just reached a point in my life where I was just like, this world has taken way too bloody much from me. I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm going to stick 2 fingers up and do what I love, which is, you know, telling stories, making people laugh, and that's kind of how Widow Me This came about. So,
How do audiences deal with it? Because it's not dark.
It's not purposefully dark. I think a lot of people are a bit worried that when I say I'm making jokes about my dead husband, that it is just me sort of, you know, making fun of the fact that he is dead. But the entire purpose of the show is to tell the story of how we met, how we fell in love, and how I'm coping with it after he's gone. Because you know, it's only been 2 years and it's still very, very tricky. But for me, this is kind of like my therapy, because, you know, again, being Scottish, we're not very good about talking about our feelings. And so I'm trying to sort of break open the mould of, it is okay to, you know, talk about these things, it's okay to laugh about these things, it's okay to cry about these things, because in reality, there's no right way to mourn someone. The best way you can remember those that you've lost is to tell their stories, to, you know, keep their memories alive. And for me, this is the best way I can do it. And it's been really well received. It's been much more well received than I was expecting, because the entire point I'm doing this is to raise funds for the two charities that really helped me, which are Teenage Cancer Trust and St Columbus Hospice. And so I've had audiences in every day, which is shocking because my show's at 12 midday, and people keep turning up and I'm like, why are you here? It's Tuesday at 12. Why are you here? And they're just like, we came to see you. And I'm like, really? It's genuinely astonishing, because the majority of my shows I've just been, friends of mine or friends of Stuart that have turned up just wanting to support me. But then yesterday I actually had people I didn't know in the audience, and I was someone was like, oh God, I'm actually going to have to try today, my God. And it was actually incredibly sweet, because one of them, who had a couple of sort of teenage kids, came up to me and said, this show was really important because they had just lost their granddad. So for them, it was being able to show them that you can talk about the ones that you've lost, and you can have fun with it as well. Fun, basically you remember the people you love in the way that works for you.
And so this is your second Fringe?
Technically second Fringe, yeah. I actually worked for the Pleasance in 2016 over at the Courtyard as part of EUSA, or USA as I used to know it, but apparently we're not allowed to use acronyms anymore. But that was really good for me, because it was just after Stuart had died, so I just kind of threw myself into work and was able to be a bit more distracted than usual. And weirdly enough, it was actually after the Fringe that ended that's when I kind of hit my wall and was like, okay, so this is what I'm going to have to deal with now. Right. So that was very interesting, because I did say to him when he was in hospital, like, do you still want me to work in the Fringe? We didn't know how much time he was going to have, and he's like, no, it's really important that you do this, because, you've been going to the Fringe since you were 18 years old. You absolutely love the Fringe, and this is a great opportunity for you to see the behind the scenes of it. But I do remember, because there's a wonderful Fringe performer called Puddle's Pity Party. He's not here this year, which I'm very sad about. But when I first discovered Puddles, I was in the depths of very, very bad depression, and in a weird way, he helped me sort of come to terms with the fact of, oh no, it's okay to feel sad and still feel happy at the same time. As you'll know, depression's a weird thing. Depression's very difficult to describe properly. And I managed to take him to see one of the shows at Christmas time, and he fell in love with Puddles as well. And I remember when we were talking about the Fringe, and we were sort of, saying like, no, you have to go. And then suddenly it just went, what are we going to tell Puddles? And I just burst into laughter, because I was like, we're trying to deal with the fact that you've been diagnosed with cancer. I think, discussing, your diagnosis of Puddles is kind of the last of our priorities right now.
I think that's what the Fringe is like. It does make you, because it's such a weird sort of bubble, it's like, that it does make sense.
Yeah.
I need to go and tell my family, and that means like a 6'5" clown in full makeup who sings songs. You guys, you've obviously quite a lot of Fringe experience, Richard. How many Fringes is this?
My first Fringe as a punter was in 1996.
Right.
My very first show was an American show called Adaptation at the old sea venues on Princess Street. And I've been running Fringe Guru for this is our 12th year.
Wow. So you must spend quite a lot of time up here.
I actually live in Edinburgh, which is a thing that nobody knows. Everybody thinks I live somewhere else.
Well, we've said before on the show is that I think a lot of performers just generally think that Edinburgh is like this brigadoon that only appears in August.
And it sort of is, because if you only come up here for the Fringe, then the Edinburgh that you see is brigadoon. It appears for this brief period, and then we're back to our normal city for the rest of the year. But no, I'm very lucky to be at home during this festival. I cover other festivals as well. I cover Brighton and Buxton. And Edinburgh, in many ways, of course, is the most full-on and the most difficult, but it's the easiest because it's the one where I'm actually at home.
Yes. Yeah, and I mean, that's quite important for support as well. John, you're not from Edinburgh as well, are you?
No.
Okay, excellent. What do you do for support during the Fringe? Do you have people around? Do you have people you can call on for?
I'm slightly autistic, so I don't like the noise and the hustle and bustle. I don't do the late night parties, so I stay out near York Place, because for the first 2 years that I had a solo show here, I was at the stand. So they're all my crew, they're my friends, so I can come out of my front door and see all of the stand people. I'm about 5 minutes walk from the National Portrait Gallery. I'm about 15 minutes walk from the Royal Botanic Gardens. And then I'm another 5 minutes walk from the Omni Centre, so I can just go to an empty screening of something, any film at all, for 2 hours and not have somebody try flying me or lie down dead in my path and pretend to be dying.
My favourite type of flyer of that. Yeah. There should be a ban of some sort on that.
It's only under 25-year-olds who ever do the thing where they chalk a person on the pavement, because I think they've never lost someone. And once you're over 25, you realise what an extraordinarily bad taste that is.
Yeah.
Especially as a way of trying to sell entertainment. But they still do it every year.
Well, that's a good tip to share. I think this show is all about empathy and trying to remind people that, what everyone else is going through and not get trapped in to be sensitive to other people's needs. And I suppose that's probably most difficult for yourself.
Definitely. I mean, it can be a bit tricky sometimes because, especially just after he died, and I was working with quite a lot of sort of younger people than I was, sort of like 18, 19-year-olds who were sort of trying to deal with dissertations and things like that. And although I did empathise, there were days where you're just like, actually shut up, you have literally no idea how lucky you are to still be here, to still be able to deal with these things, because Stuart was 22 when he died. He'd only graduated from university the year before, and he actually died the day before his 23rd birthday. And I think that's always what's hit me hardest, is that he couldn't even make it till he was 23. And so when I see a lot of young people who are just out there complaining about this, that and t'other, and I do sympathise with them, because I know how hard it is to be a young person in this day and age, especially with because I do work for the NHS, and I know how appalling the NHS mental health system is as well. And when you do struggle with mental health issues and you don't have that support network around you, it can be very tricky. So that's why I do end up sort of taking it on myself to, especially where I'm based, I'm over at Barbados, and we do have a lot of sort of first-time performers and things like that who are totally new to the Fringe. They've never even been to Edinburgh before, some of them, and so I kind of ended up taking it on myself to sort of become their Fringe mum and make sure sort of everybody's, I'm constantly going around going, have you eaten? Have a brunch bar. Have you eaten? Have a brunch bar. So I've just become sort of the Fringe mum for the sort of, as we call the High Noon Brothers.
I'm not sure you should be advertising this, because there's people watching thinking, I'm going to head over to Barbados. I need a free brunch bar. I want a brunch bar.
The terrible thing, I don't actually think I've got any on me today, because I had to leave the house so quickly, because I'm also doing late night Fringe as well, so my show finished about 1 o'clock this morning, so I've not even had a chance to put any brunch bars in my bag, so everybody's going to be like, you got any breakfast? I'll be like, no.
I would point out at this point that I look really selfish at the moment because I'm letting you talk a lot, but that's because you've got to rush off to do your show.
I do, yes. My show's like starting about an hour. So.
Yeah, but it's good because it's in the Cowgate, so it's all downhill.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all downhill from here, just in life.
Well, it's been lovely to meet you.
It's been really lovely to be here. Thank you so much.
We're going to come back and talk some more.
Okay.
We're going to run a package now featuring Chloe Nelkin, who has a PR consultancy. They do a lot of work up here at the Fringe. They're doing a lot of work with the Pleasance, and we met up with her and Tilly to talk about what they do up here.
So this is my 7th Fringe working, but I've been coming up for just over 15 years. So I came as a punter before I started to bring clients up.
And I've been coming up to the Fringe with Chloe for the last 3 years.
And you represent, tell us what Chloe Nelkin Consulting does.
So we look after the PR for various companies. So when somebody decides they're bringing a show up to the Fringe, they'd approach us and chat about what PR means, which is fundamentally getting them as much press coverage as possible. And if we think that we are a good sort of partner for the show, then we work with them and help them generate as much exposure as possible.
And what's your primary thing about the Fringe? What do you think, how would you explain the atmosphere of the festival?
I always describe it like a beast. I think I love and hate the Fringe in equal measures. It's an absolutely crazy environment. So thousands of performers descend on the city, and it's a fantastic vibe. Sort of, you really feel like people's passion for the arts and their dedication to their show. But it's also stressful because there are thousands of performers descending on the city, all with the same goal, which is to get people into their shows and press coverage for those shows.
And Tilly, what's your role in this? How do you work with a client? So just take one example client, and what service do you do for them?
So, for example, we get approached usually a good few months before the Fringe, and that can also sometimes be before the Fringe the year before. So we start with the client a good few months before, and we go and meet with them, and we have meetings and we chat through the show. We often read the scripts, but these can change all the way up until the Fringe. You know, some people have about 30 different variations, but it's good for us to read that straight off and get to know this show really well. From then we'll start by writing the press release, and again this will have several variations. It's always, we want to make sure that it's perfect for both the performer and the company. And up until then, we're really on call up until the Fringe ends. Really, we're going to be trying to secure preview coverage for the shows, and so that's, for example, news articles, interviews with people involved all throughout. It doesn't just have to be the performer. And then, when we're at the Fringe, we want to get those reviewers in as early as possible.
And what's it like once you actually get to the Fringe? How's a typical day when you're in? You have a flat where everybody's based.
Yeah, so we have a flat that doubles as an office. So a typical day normally starts at about 7 a.m. And once the Fringe is underway, the first thing we do is check the ticket bookings with the venue. So we have our own bookings list. We then cross-reference with all the box office reports to check the correct people are booked in. We then start searching for press. So one of the things we do is send all of the shows we're working with a daily report. So we have to go through all those ticket bookings and all of the press that may have come out. So that's hundreds of websites and newspapers by the time of the first show, which can be as early as 10:30. This year we're looking after 25 shows, so that's quite a big job. Then once all of those final reports are out, our days could be a variety of things. We could be off to supervise a photo call, we could be calling up press to see why we haven't got their review bookings, we could be heading to see one of our shows, supervising an interview to check that a client's happy, meeting a journalist for lunch. It's endless, but often we are running from place to place like nutcases, and we're on the go till about midnight most days.
So that's a very full day.
It is quite a full day.
How do you manage your downtime? Do you have any downtime?
We're not very good at downtime. This year it's something that we're really trying to be a bit better, so we've blocked out one afternoon so far, which for us is really luxurious, and we'll see if we manage it. But
what are you planning to do?
we're going to the beach.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Portobello Beach?
We are going to Portobello Beach. But truthfully, a PR is on call 24 hours a day, so downtime for us is really hard. I think one of the things that we do a bit differently is we don't just want to be a PR. The firm's a consulting firm because we want to be there to support our clients. So if somebody calls us at 11 o'clock at night, we're going to answer rather than going, that's out of office hours. So lots of people think we're mad, but that's what the company does.
September is a holiday month?
No, September's a really busy month as well. So as well as doing theatre, we do visual arts. So there's not really a break. That's visual art season, and also lots of our shows transfer quite quickly. And we've got all of our London shows to bear in mind. So although Edinburgh's a huge part of what we do, there's still our team in London. So no downtime in September.
How many clients are you working with this year? 25?
25, and we're also looking after Pleasance as a whole, so looking after their core PR and all of their logistics.
When a company comes to you and says that they're having a bad time, can you advise them? Do you have people that you can send them to?
So I think it depends on what kind of a bad time they're having. The majority of clients who call us upset, it normally relates to a bad review. And then one of the crucial things that we try and do is remind them that reviews are subjective. That of course reviews are important and you want reviews to sort of garner attention and get audiences in, but actually they are subjective. Just because one person hates a show, it doesn't mean that the next person through the door isn't going to love it. And so we've got past experiences of shows like that. Last year we had a show get a full house, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got the experience to say, okay, look at this show and try and not let them be demoralised, and also remind them that the next day's a new day and the next morning there may be a 5-star review waiting in their inbox.
I imagine it comes down a lot of the time that it's not just PR and you have to give a lot of personal attention to clients.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this from experience because I've worked with you. So how do you support those people in that regard?
So because we try and pick shows and people who we really like, and both are really important, we try to really be a support network. So obviously, yes, PR is the bulk of what we do, but we have clients calling us when they're locked out of their flats, when their hot water has gone and they need to come round for showers at our flat, when they are drunk and just a bit upset. So we really we almost become an extension of their production team, and we are a rock for them. And I think especially with people that we're working with really early, some people we work with a year in advance, we're reading those scripts and we're really feeding into their creative process. So they feel really close to us by the time we actually arrive in August.
And Tilly, you have a party every year for all of your clients where on the Meadows.
Yes, we do. We have a client party towards the end of the Fringe, but it's a really nice way to bring all of the companies together. As Chloe said, we've been working with a lot of these people for a good few months, and so it's really nice to remind people that we are there for them, and it's just a lot of fun. The Fringe can be quite a lonely place sometimes, which does sound quite strange, but you have that 1 hour slot which a performer might be going to, but there's a lot of more hours in the day. So it's really nice to remind people that, we're there, but also there's a lot of other companies who have, very similar ways of thinking, and it's nice to bring everyone together.
Yeah. We also, when possible, the point of the party as well is to try and let people meet each other. And in the past we've connected various clients, like if we've had one-person shows who are really struggling with that intensity, we've connected them to other one-person shows who may have been up here in the past. So we also, as well as us being a support network, we try and let our shows interlink with each other almost, so that they can support each other.
So presumably some of your role involves talking to reviewers about reviews that they've given your clients and helping to smooth over any bumps there.
Yes and no. So one of the things, like I mentioned before, I think reviews are subjective. If a review is factually inaccurate, then 100% will get it changed straight away, and reviewers are really busy, and so inaccuracies happen. But if somebody doesn't like their review and wants to get it changed, then that's something we really don't believe that we should do. We think if you open the door to press, you have to accept their opinion, whether you like it or not.
And it's not just press now, it's bloggers, it's just
bloggers,
people.
it's Twitter influencers, it's vloggers, it's really opened up over the past few years as the digital media has grown.
Yeah. And I think one thing to bear in mind if you're a performer is that you shouldn't actually approach the journalists directly, especially via social media, because people aren't going to forget that. So, when you come up next year or you have another show, reviewers are going to remember that you contacted them at 11 o'clock at night when you were drunk.
Yeah.
So, it's something to really bear in mind. Social media has changed a lot over the last few years, but you shouldn't use it as a tool to approach reviewers directly.
So you're diplomats.
Hopefully, most of the time.
Well, thank you very much for coming to talk to us.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
That was Chloe Nelkin talking about PR. I've done my favourite trick there of putting a gap in between the first name and surname again. I will continue to do that until the day I die, no doubt. We're back with Richard Stamp and John Pendal. We have to note we have switched sides. It's not your imagination. It's half time. We've had an orange. We've switched around because of the sunshine, amazingly. Richard, Chloe's been talking there about PR and about how they handle performers and reviewers and the relationship between. How do you go about managing that? Do you get approached a lot during the festival? I'm guessing people are just constantly bashing your door down.
Absolutely. I mean, I've kept my orange lanyard on so that everybody can see what it means. So people wearing these are journalists, and absolutely, people pitch their shows to me all the time. And for the first week of the Fringe, there are a series of events. I spent, 8 hours a day for the first few days at press launch events, which are an opportunity for shows and performers to engage and talk about their work. I will be honest, I obviously have the greatest of respect for Chloe, but I pay much more attention to the performers who pitch directly to us than I do to PRs, because ultimately they're the ones that are making the work and they're the ones that have the real buy-in and investment here.
So you encourage people to come to you?
Oh, absolutely,
and pitch the show?
absolutely I do. Yeah, I mean,
You spend a lot of time in
anybody
Fringe
wants to
Central.
come.
I've seen you several times in Fringe
Yeah,
Central.
I'm often around in Fringe Central. If I have a few minutes between shows, I'll go there. And yeah, partly that's to get something to eat or drink or whatever, but also partly it's because I know people will come and have a chat with me there. And it's lovely when they do it. It's a real privilege to have the role that I have, and it's a real privilege to speak to people about their shows.
How many shows are you going to see?
I personally, I'll probably review about 25 and see another 25 or so just for fun. And as an organisation, we'll review about 200 this year.
200 reviews.
I think so, yeah.
How do you handle that responsibility? So people, let's ask John first to get a performer's perspective on this. Do you read reviews?
I do, yes.
You do?
Yeah, of
We've had a
course.
lot of people on who say that they don't like to see them. They prefer to read them in September.
I'm slightly OCD, so there's some things I can't stop myself from doing. It's why I'm not on Twitter, because I feel the need to read all the tweets.
Right.
I couldn't stop myself from reading reviews, so you have to inure yourself to them and say, I'm not going to take this personally, it's one person's opinion. It's just what they thought on one day. Put a different person in on a different day, they come to a different conclusion. It's nobody's saying that's the gold stamp on your show, unless it's 5 stars, in which case you'll use that forever.
Yes, exactly.
But most of the
That's
time,
the definitive.
Yeah, most of the time you're just looking for a pull quote that you can use. Or if they didn't like any of it, I try and work out why. But it's still one person's opinion. And it could be they absolutely didn't get the point of the show. My first show was about me being raised Baptist, so it's on the front and back of the flyer. All the way through the show I talked about being Baptist. A review came out and said I was Catholic. So you just have to, it's one person's opinion and they might be an idiot.
You didn't convert at the end
No,
of the show?
I did
Okay.
write to the publication and suggest they just do a change and replace of Catholic to Baptist all the way through the review, because otherwise I thought it would reflect badly on them.
Yeah. This is something that Chloe's just been talking about if there is something factually inaccurate about a review, reviewers are happy to have that feedback normally.
Absolutely. Yeah. If there is an actual mistake, then as an editor, I'm an editor as well as a reviewer, then I will absolutely want to correct that. So, if there's a mistake with spelling your name or something that is just plain wrong, then please always do get in touch and raise that, and anybody responsible should be willing to correct that.
And how much do you enjoy it when performers come to you and challenge not the facts but the opinion?
But it depends how they do it, of course. A review is an informed, maybe expert, but always subjective opinion of one person on one day, exactly
Yes.
as you've said. If you're challenging my right to have that opinion, then you're looking at it the wrong way. But sometimes people do come to me and say, well, what I was really trying to achieve was this, or I thought what you said was interesting, but this. And that kind of dialogue is always welcome. I mean, why wouldn't it be? And there have been occasions when I've said, actually, I was a bit stupid there. I really did miss the point of that. And I'll do my best to correct that in some way if that happens.
It's interesting. I think the reviews kind of generally breaks down in that's subjective, that bit of opinion there. But I think as a performer you can look at it and go, actually, I think that actually might be right. Like maybe if I didn't communicate it effectively enough, then maybe I'll change the show.
So when people just don't get it, I mean, the example of Catholic Baptist, that's just not listening, isn't it? There's no excuse I'm going to make for that. But sometimes when people don't get the intended point of the show, that is just a signal that the point didn't really come across. And there's a discussion to have about how much we ought to research what we're going to see before we go in and see it. But I personally try not to, because your audience won't. If there was something in the press release which would have explained it all, but I didn't read the press release so I didn't get it, then I'm afraid that's kind of your fault.
Yes, it should stand alone as a piece. I don't think you shouldn't have had to have done a lot of research in order to actually critique it as a piece. Changing tack a little, John, you have a very interesting title that I want to talk about. Your past is a very interesting one.
Yes, I was a shy Baptist boy in Watford. And then when I was in 2003, I accidentally won a leather competition in a leather bar in Vauxhall, which was just getting up on some oil drums for 30 seconds and heckling the crowd. It was to find someone who would hand out free tequila at Christmas and free champagne at New Year's. But part of the prize, if you wanted, you'd qualify to enter a big jamboree in America in May called International Mr. Leather, which is an enormous event. When I entered, it lasted a week. This was their 40th anniversary this year. 18,000 people went. There were 70 men this year from all over the world. I was up against, I think, 53. And in 40 years, I'm the only British person who's ever won it. So I'm International Mr. Leather 2003.
And you're a Peter nightmare. Peter?
Oh yes, I did. A lot of the events I went to, there were people from PETA who were protesting. And our argument was twofold. First of all, I don't wear animals that I'm not also eating. So I'm kind of holistic in that I'm doing the whole of it. It's not an endangered, but I was aware that the leather garments I was wearing for the competition had been passed down to me through the generations. The people who put down a platinum card and bought new and they squeaked up on stage didn't place anywhere. If you condition a leather garment, it will last many generations. You know, we've got jackets from the Second World War that people are still wearing if they look after them. I think if we're looking at if you take out the moral objection, you're wearing the skin of an animal. But if we're just looking at environmental footprint, a leather garment over many generations, I think will do far less damage than something that's artificially manufactured that will possibly only last a few years.
Wonderful. I just think that's such an interesting story. I mean, it's drifting slightly from the point of Edinburgh. But,
I know, and I still get the moral objection to eating animals. And if I wasn't allergic to gluten as well, I would go vegetarian or vegan. But my issue is so many vegetarian and vegan products add grains to replace for them. I'm already not eating wheat, rye, barley, and oats. You know, I would be left with basically nuts and pulses.
How did you get through Edinburgh then? How do you look after yourself with a sort of restricted menu of deep fried objects?
Because I'm slightly OCD, I have things I have to do, and one of them is every 3 or 4 days I buy a bag of spinach, which is £1, and then I try and put a handful of it in everything I eat. So if it's a sandwich, you can put it in raw, but if it's beans on toast, just wilt them in. And that way, my theory is, if you have 2 bags of spinach a week, it doesn't matter that I haven't eaten any other vegetables for a month. But I was in Pizza Express yesterday, and I did say, can you just put like mushrooms or something, artichokes on? So they looked at me very oddly. I said, look, the month of August we get no vegetables. I have to take them where I can find them. Really, on a pizza, honestly, I'll just, wherever you can, put in a vegetable.
I feel very guilty at the moment because every day we're doing this show and every day we're saying, like, yes, people at home, we eat vegetables, get through it, eat healthy, and then I go home and I'm just eating toast the entire time.
But you can put spinach on toast. You can put spinach in anything. In soup, cup of soup, pot noodle, whatever. It wilts down, it cooks. In an omelette, you can do it with any leftovers from the fridge. Do an omelette with put some spinach. But it does help you get to the end of the month. Because if you're well that final week, you'll pick up a lot of open spots as a performer, covering for other people that have got ill.
Replacing the fallen.
Yes, and I maintain I've only got 2 rules. One is to eat the spinach, and the other, never touch a microphone to your face. And I don't know why some people do. They actually perform like that. Do you have any idea how many people have coughed on that today? It's just covered in microphone herpes, and you're touching it to your own face. Like, I have it a good normally the microphone's closer. Edinburgh, 6 inches away for the month, and then afterwards wash your hands before you eat anything, and you will be ill otherwise at the end of the month.
And John's 2019 show, Microphone Herpes, will be announced.
Oh, I've got the title for next year's show. I know the title already. It's after pitch it before the end of the month.
Well, if I can have microphone herpes, then I'll...
You can have microphone herpes.
Thank you very much. So, how do you cope with Edinburgh? Do you look after yourself while you're here? I mean, you live here, so it's a little easier.
It's easier, isn't it? Yeah, because I've got a world outside the Fringe that I can go to. I don't do that very often. Maybe once a week I'll catch up with some friends outside the bubble. On the subject of food, I just feel this needs to be said that every Fringe people will come up and say, oh, you need to eat apples, you need to eat fruit, you need to eat spinach, and they're saying what works for them, but my body type is different, and we shouldn't feel ashamed about doing the things that work for us. And so, the fuel that works for me is things like eggs and lean meat and big bowls of porridge, and we never hear that discussed. So we all know what works and we all know what's rubbish, and let's just do the things that work for us. Other things about getting through Edinburgh, or getting enough sleep is a big thing, isn't it? Which is so challenging at times like this. But I try to. It's very rare that I can set aside a whole day, but I'll try to set aside half a day and not schedule anything in, so that I can just have a little bit of time to decompress.
Yeah.
And the thing that I always say when I have a forum like this one, I've made a real commitment to myself to keep saying this year, is that if you are struggling, then tell someone. I don't mind saying this. There's one fringe many years ago when I ended up phoning the Samaritans in the middle of the night because the stress had got to me that much. And it was one of the best decisions I'd ever made. That sort of timely intervention, talking to someone when I needed to, stopped it spiralling out of control and getting much worse. If there's anybody watching this who feels that they are not quite coping on this very difficult day, and Black Wednesday, as you said, then talk to someone, talk to your friends, talk to someone back home. Reach out to me if you want to, but talk to someone. Do it today.
Yeah, and we've bigged up Fringe Central a lot as well as a really good resource of just being able to go in there and talk to someone, either a staff member or just get talking to other performers, because chances are they're going through similar things, performers and industry people.
Very different pressures for performers and industry people. I'm under no illusions about that. But at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat, and Edinburgh is a crazy pressure cooker for all of us, and we just do need to support each other. I
mean, I've already seen venue staff in tears because they're getting stick from the companies that are in there.
Absolutely, and sad to say also from reviewers. I mean, you sometimes see people not behaving all that well because they've turned up and their press ticket's not ready or something like that. And I understand. I understand what happens. I understand the pressures that come from that. And maybe sometimes I've not been as nice as I should have been myself, and I'm really sorry for those moments. But all we can do is to do our best and pull together.
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to do with this show. Drive empathy. Remember that everybody else around you, when you're working at the Fringe, whether they be venue staff or box office people or serving you coffee, they're all people, and they all, you can't take stuff out on them without there being repercussions for them on the other side. John, your show's at the Gilded Balloon.
It is.
How's it going so far?
I'm enjoying it. I'm loving the show. It's comedy storytelling for an hour about living with a stressful family. And I like it at the end when the audience leave if they say, I'm actually going to think of my parents differently from this point on. So that's nice. I feel like I'm doing some good.
You were showing us your poster, and you have your family.
Oh, yes. So these are all images from my family albums. So that was me entering International Mr. Leather, and that's the moment of the win. We've also got my puddy cat and my dad, and that's my great-great-granddad. We've got an arsonist in the family from 1910.
Nice.
Talk about him in the show. So these are all pictures from my family. But I like it when audiences say it's meant to be about your family, but I recognise my family too.
I think that's important. We've talked quite a bit on this programme about family, about when you're at the Fringe and you just forget that the outside world exists, that actually family is really important because they're somewhere else usually. And they don't necessarily understand the industry and the pressures of the industry. So they're really good people to reach out to because they will remind you that this is not everything. This is not the centre of the universe, although it may feel like it, and that in September the world will open back up again, and we'll all go back out into the world. What are you looking forwards to? What are your expectations from the festival, and what's a win for you?
I like to make a list of goals of things that I have control over. Okay. So it's not for me that I get a 4-star review because that's somebody else. I can't control that. So the things that I would like to achieve are to get to the end of the month well. And sorry if you misunderstood, I don't just live on spinach. The rest of my diet is rubbish. It's pizza and oink hog roast and Magnum ice cream. But wherever I can, little handful of spinach eases the guilt. I'd like to get to the Botanic Gardens one day because I love bees. And I can just lose myself staring at lavender and just watch the bees and then come to and think, how long have I been here? I would like to entertain audiences to the best of my ability every day. And I would like to do right by my flowering team, which doesn't mean if they let me down that I'm not a good manager as well. But I think if they're doing a good job, I should be supporting them too in any way that I can. So I'm always on the phone during their shift. I can bring them coffees if they need it. If they're out of flyers, I can bring it. But also if they're saying, my voice is going, right, let's talk about a day off.
Yeah.
The people that I work with are looked after as well. So things that I can control is how I would judge the success of this.
Fantastic. And Richard, you're looking after a team of reviewers?
I have, yes, I've got about 15 reviewers this year.
Different breadths of experience and age and...
Certainly different breadths of age. I've got a fairly stable team which we built up over the years, so I'm really very lucky that they are pretty good at looking after themselves. But of course I'm there for them if anything's ever needed. I'll just say, do go to the Botanic Garden. Please do. It's a beautiful, beautiful place.
And it's free.
And
Yes,
it's
free.
free. Yeah, that's wrong side of town for me, but it's the perfect place to unwind.
I think I did 7 fringes saying, this is the year I'm going to go to Arthur's Seat. I'm going to go up Arthur's Seat and I'm going to be up there, and
I made it
took
half
me,
the way.
took me
It's
7
quite-
years.
Quite tall.
It is.
is.
It's steeper than you
I
think
found
it's
a
going
high
to be.
rock and I thought, I'm just going to call this Arthur's Seat. I don't need to go all the way out there. I'll just do this one.
It's Arthur's footstool.
Yeah.
I'm happy down here.
Yeah. A successful fringe for me, I suppose, if we find exciting new work, if we find a few things that we want to trumpet and promote, and that nobody else is talking about, that's what I do it for. But that's in the lap of the gods, isn't it? I mean, maybe we'll find them, maybe we won't.
Yeah.
We just have to tell the truth.
That's it for all of us, isn't it? We're all just in the lap of the gods. Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking to us.
You're very welcome.
I need to put in a plug, if I may, for Equity, their little sanctuary room on the
You can
first floor
absolutely plug
of
that.
Fringe Central. It's not every day. You need to work out the days that it's on. I think it starts about 11 in the morning, but it's a fantastic room on the first floor of Fringe Central. They have beanbags, they have soft music, they have somebody you can chat to if you need to. Some mornings they have head and shoulder massage. But it is, I did it 1 year and I thought, this is a little gem. Do I need to re-say that?
I will. We will put the details on the bottom of the screen,
Okay.
so that people get the link to that, because I think there is a web page on the Fringe Central site that,
Right.
that explains what those are.
I've seen
Yeah.
it on the monitors as well, on the big TV screens at
And
Fringe
it's
Central.
worth doing. You won't realise just how much you're carrying till you're lying in a beanbag in that sanctuary room and think, I needed this.
Yeah, I think in an interview pre-Fringe, Beck Hill was saying that when she comes up next, her idea is to create a second show, which is literally just a dark room where people can go lie down for an hour, and she reckons that would probably be a sellout.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Fringe Central, there's so many services there. We plug them a lot because I keep finding performers that just don't realise what they offer. And it's not just the practical stuff like printing and internet access and guillotines so you can cut up flashes for flyers, but it is also that sort of thing. And I think Equity have just got involved. I think they started last year doing those programs, but I think it's expanded this year.
Yes.
And they run Fringe Central run a whole program of events. There's a little leaflet that you can get over at Fringe Central that tell you exactly when everything is. They do talks, and that support is available, and that's all included in your registration fee, which isn't just some money that you spend to get put in the brochure. It's to support all of those things as well. So you definitely can plug that. That
Okay.
is most welcome.
Thank you.
Everybody should go and look at that. We're going to go and enjoy the sunshine now for the next 5 minutes, probably. Have a wonderful day. Get through it. Have fun. Stay hydrated. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. 3, 2.
Hello. That was in... No, fuck that.
Is there going to be an outtake show?